The plate hit the trash before I even touched it, steam still rising. Her voice, cold as steel, sliced through the kitchen. "You eat after the dog, Evelyn. That's what you deserve." For a second, I thought I misheard her. My hands were still trembling from setting the table. Napkins folded, stew warm, just like Tom used to like it. But she didn't stutter. She looked right at me, one hand on her hip, the other scrolling her phone. The dog barked once, like even he knew something was wrong. I stood there trying to keep my voice steady. "I cooked that for everyone." She smiled. "I don't want everyone eating your food, especially not my husband. My son. My only son." He walked in then, looked at the trash, looked at me, and said nothing. That silence cut deeper than her words ever could. I wanted to scream, to ask him what happened to the boy who used to kiss my cheek after every meal, but I didn't. I just watched her walk away, laughing, heels clicking like gunshots down the hall. That was the night something inside me went still. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a woman being erased, one plate at a time. But I promise you, when a woman's dignity is thrown in the trash, she learns to take it back, piece by piece. Stay till the end. You'll see why she should have never messed with my kitchen. It's strange how quickly a house stops feeling like home. When I first moved in with Marcus and Selena, I told myself it was temporary. Just until my knee surgery healed, my son had insisted, "Mom, we'll take care of you." He meant it then. I could tell. But people change when comfort becomes routine. The first week, Selena smiled too much, offered tea, asked about my recipes, even called me Mom. It was sweet, almost believable. By the second week, she started correcting how I loaded the dishwasher. By the third, she'd replaced my old spice rack with something more modern. And by the fourth, she stopped saying Mom altogether. Now it was, "Evelyn, don't use that towel." "Evelyn, could you not cook when Marcus isn't home?" "Evelyn, the dog doesn't like noise. Maybe turn the TV down." Her voice was always light, but her words left bruises. One evening, I overheard them arguing upstairs. My son's voice, low, tired. "She's just recovering, Selena. Be patient." "Patient?" she snapped. "She's everywhere. The kitchen, the laundry. I can't breathe in my own house." He said nothing after that. I sat in the dark, pretending not to hear. That's how humiliation begins, not with shouting, but with silence. A few days later, I tried to cook dinner. Just stew. Simple. Warm. The kind Marcus loved as a child. The smell filled the kitchen. Even the dog came sniffing around. When Selena walked in, she froze. "Did you ask before using my pots?" she said. I looked at her. "These are the same ones from your wedding gift. I bought them, remember?" Her lips curved in a smile so thin it almost disappeared. "Well, they're mine now." She picked up her phone, snapped a photo of the stove, and sent it to Marcus. Then, without another word, she opened the trash bin and dumped the stew in. That was the night from the title. The soup, the insult, the silence, but it didn't end there. For the next few days, the house turned cold. No more shared meals, no more conversation, just her footsteps, always near, always sharp. The dog started growling when I entered the kitchen. Selena said it was just protective instinct. I think he was just following her example. Marcus began working late, or maybe he wasn't working at all, just avoiding the mess at home. Every time I tried to speak with him, she'd appear, hand on his shoulder, smile perfectly rehearsed. "Don't stress your mom, honey. She needs rest." I wanted to tell him I didn't need rest. I needed respect. One night I couldn't sleep. I heard laughter upstairs, her laughter. I went to refill my glass of water and stopped halfway. From the vent above the fridge, her voice drifted down. "She's pathetic, Marcus. Look at her, waiting for us to talk to her like a child." "Selena, stop," he murmured. "No, you stop defending her. You said she'd be gone by winter." My throat went dry. Gone by winter. That's when I realized this wasn't just tension. It was a plan. They wanted me gone. The next morning, Selena placed a list on the counter. "House guidelines," she said cheerfully, "just to keep things smooth." Rules. For me. No cooking without permission, no guests, no touching her kitchen appliances, no walking the dog after 7 p.m. He needs calm energy. And at the bottom, in neat handwriting, "Basement stays organized. You can use that space whenever you need quiet." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a relocation. That evening, I went down to look. The basement smelled of damp cement and detergent. Boxes from Marcus's childhood stacked against the wall. A single light flickered overhead. There was a cot and a folded blanket. That's when I realized she'd been planning this. That stew wasn't about food. It was about putting me in my place. I sat on the edge of the cot listening to the muffled laughter above me, and I made a promise. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to watch. Because people like Selena always reveal themselves. You just have to give them enough silence to hear their own cruelty. And when they do, I'd be ready. The first real crack came 3 mornings later. Selena left early, rushing to meet someone. She thought I was still asleep, but age teaches you to wake before enemies do. I heard her whispering near the door, not to Marcus, but on the phone. "Yes, the paperwork will be ready. I just need her signature first." Then a pause. "No, she doesn't read anything. She trusts me." Paperwork, signature, trust. 3 words that stuck in my chest like pins. I stayed behind the corner, quiet until the front door closed. When she drove off, I went to the counter. There, under a pile of glossy magazines, was a manila folder labeled Transfer Authorization. It had my name printed across the top. I didn't open it yet. I just stared at it. Because sometimes the truth isn't something you rush into. It's something you let unfold, like a bad smell from a sealed jar. I slipped it under my apron, poured myself coffee, and waited for Marcus to come downstairs. He walked in, half-dressed, half-present. "Morning, Mom," I smiled. "Morning. Your wife's busy early." He froze for a second. "Yeah, she had errands." "Paperwork?" I asked lightly. He looked up. Too fast, too defensive. "What paperwork?" That was all the confirmation I needed. By afternoon, I was in the basement again, pretending to fold laundry, really just thinking. The folder sat beside me. I opened it. Inside were transfer forms. Power of attorney, joint account access, even a pension change request. Every line was filled out, every detail correct. All it needed was my signature. The pen was already clipped to the corner. I didn't sign, I didn't confront. I waited, because shouting would make me unstable. Crying would make me dramatic. But watching made me dangerous. The next fracture came through the dog. I was feeding him leftovers one afternoon when Selena walked in. "Don't feed him that," she snapped. "It's just chicken." I said don't. She yanked the bowl away, spilling it across the floor. Then she looked at me with a strange mix of disgust and fear. "Stay out of things you don't understand." Her voice trembled. Not anger, panic. When she left, I bent down to clean the mess and saw something wedged behind the dog's bed. A torn envelope, half burnt, with the name Dr. Patel, fertility clinic on the corner. The dog had chewed the edge. Inside was a payment receipt and Selena's signature. Marcus had no idea. That night, I served dinner anyway. My rule was simple. When they're cruel, stay gracious. She didn't join. Stayed upstairs, pacing, whispering into her phone. Marcus sat in front of me. Quiet. "Mom," he said finally, "don't take things personally. Selena's under stress." I smiled. "We're all under stress. Some of us just don't spill it on others." He looked at me, almost ashamed. Then the baby monitor on the counter blinked. A small green light flashing. Static humming softly. Selena's voice came through, faint but clear. "She's reading everything. You need to get her out before she talks." Marcus froze. The color drained from his face. I reached over and turned the monitor off. "Dinner's getting cold," I said gently. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the basement cot, folder open beside me, dog curled at my feet. Through the vent, I heard muffled voices again, Selena's sharp, Marcus's low and pleading. "You said it would be done this week," she hissed. "I can't just throw her out, Selena." "Then I will." Something fell. A door slammed. Silence followed, heavy, poisonous. I stared at the flickering bulb above me, my reflection faint in the dusty window. That's when I said it out loud for the first time. "That's it. I'm done watching." I folded the papers neatly, tucked them into a tin box where I used to keep Tom's old letters, and locked it with a hairpin. If they wanted war, I'd fight the way only mothers know how. Quietly, intelligently, devastatingly. I'd watched enough to know her weakness now. Selena's world was made of appearances, glittering, fragile, and easily cracked, and the cracks were already spreading. The next morning, I woke before the sun, not out of habit, out of instinct. There's a stillness before betrayal finishes baking, the kind that warns you to stay quiet and watch the edges burn. I'd stopped feeling hurt. That was gone now. What came instead was something colder. Distance. I made tea, slowly. Poured it into my cup like it was a ceremony. 1 spoon of sugar. Stir counterclockwise. Always counterclockwise. It wasn't about the tea. It was about control. Because control is the one thing cruel people never expect you to keep. Upstairs, Selena's heels clicked across the floor. She always walked like she was announcing herself. Sharp, important, loud. When Marcus left for work, she appeared in the kitchen doorway, eyes half closed, pretending to yawn. "Could you not use my mug, Evelyn? It's a matching set." I smiled without looking up. "Then maybe I'll buy you another one," she smirked. "You? With what money?" The spoon in my hand stilled. I didn't answer. That silence, it made her twitch. For the next few days, I spoke only when necessary, not out of fear but calculation. I wanted her to hear the absence of me. She thrived on reactions. Without them, she was starving. She'd try small provocations, leaving dirty dishes on the table after dinner, muttering old people under her breath, taking calls loudly so I could hear her say, "She's losing it." Every time I'd just sip my tea and say, "You might be right." That calm drove her mad. One afternoon, I folded laundry, Marcus's shirts, Selena's dresses, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to look closer. A note slipped from one of her blouses, a small yellow paper folded twice. On it, a name and a phone number. For the appraisal. Confirm date before he comes. Appraisal. The same week, she'd said the house was too big for old people. I looked around. The curtains, the photo frames, the worn table Tom built with his hands. Everything in this house was mine, and she was getting it priced. I pressed the note flat and tucked it into my sleeve. That evening, she came downstairs with her perfect posture and her poisonous smile. "Evelyn, we're having guests next week," she said. "Maybe you could stay with a friend for a few days." "Oh?" I asked, folding another shirt. "And who's visiting?" She hesitated. Too long. "A friend from Marcus's office." I nodded, pretending to believe her, but my mind was already turning. If an appraiser was coming, I needed proof. Later that night, I stood in the doorway of the living room. Selena sat on the couch, scrolling her phone, wine glass in hand. "Good night," I said softly. She didn't look up. "Sleep tight, Evelyn. Don't trip on those stairs again." Her laughter followed me down to the basement like smoke. I sat on the cot, folded my hands, and whispered, "You wanted silence, Selena. Let's see what you do with it." I started keeping notes. Small, neat, precise. Every insult, every lie, every phone call, dates, times, even the tone of her voice. I'd built families, meals, and memories my whole life. Now I was building evidence. The tea ritual continued every morning. It became my armor. The more she mocked me, the steadier my hand grew. She thought she'd broken me, but she'd only burned away everything that kept me patient. When Marcus finally noticed my quiet, he asked, "Mom, are you okay?" I smiled. "I'm better than okay, sweetheart. I'm learning who you married." He didn't understand what I meant. Not yet, but he would. Because truth has its own timing. Slow, steady, inevitable. And mine was almost ready to pour. It happened on a Thursday. The kind of day that pretends to be ordinary. Sunlight, warm air, the smell of bleach in the hallway. Selena was humming upstairs, and the dog barked at nothing again. I'd been waiting for this day. At exactly 11, a white car pulled into the driveway. A tall man in a gray suit stepped out, holding a clipboard and a smile too polite to be casual. He looked around the house like it already belonged to him. I didn't move from the window, just watched. Selena met him at the door, her voice high and professional. "Mr. Hanley, so glad you could come. Yes, my husband's mother is still living here. Temporarily." Temporarily. That word told me everything. I slipped on my cardigan and walked upstairs slowly, like I didn't know what was happening. The man looked startled when he saw me. "Oh, hello there, ma'am." Before he could continue, Selena's voice sharpened. "Evelyn, could you please wait downstairs? We're discussing maintenance work." I smiled. "Maintenance work? Then maybe I should take notes. I've lived here 40 years. The man hesitated, glancing between us. "You're the homeowner, Mrs. Carter?" Selena froze. "Oh, no." "Yes," I interrupted softly. "The deed's in my name. Evelyn Carter. You'll find it in public record if you look." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I could see the calculations spinning behind her eyes, the way manipulators do math when their lies start collapsing. She excused the man quickly, saying she'd reschedule, and the moment the door shut, she spun on me. "Why would you embarrass me like that?" "I didn't," I said calmly. "You did." The fight that followed wasn't loud. It was sharp, like glass. "You're ruining this family," she hissed. "No," I said. "You're selling it." Her jaw tightened. "You think Marcus will believe you? You're losing it, Evelyn. You can't even walk without whining." I almost laughed. The cruelty was so desperate now it sounded like begging. I walked past her, ignoring every word, and went straight to my room. Pulled out the tin box from under the cot, the one holding the folder she thought I'd never read. I laid the papers out neatly on the desk. Transfer forms, bank authorizations, forged signatures. Mine. Except they weren't mine. That night, Marcus came home late. I heard their voices upstairs, low at first, then rising. She was crying, playing the same game manipulators always do when truth corners them. "She's confused, Marcus. She doesn't remember things right." I waited until the house fell silent. Then I climbed the stairs and placed the folder on the kitchen counter. Open. Undeniable. When Marcus saw it the next morning, he looked pale. "Mom," he said slowly, "where did you get this?" "Your wife left it out," I replied. "She was kind enough to show me what she's been building." He rubbed his forehead. "She said you're imagining things." "Read the date, Marcus." He did. His expression changed, from confusion to shame, then disbelief. "She had these drawn up before you even moved in." I nodded. "Now tell me again, who's confused?" Selena entered the kitchen halfway through. She froze when she saw us. The silence was electric. "You went through my things," she said flatly. "You left them on the counter," I answered. "That's called sharing." Her mask cracked. "You're trying to ruin me." "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself when you forgot I raised a lawyer's son." Marcus turned to her, eyes wide. "Selena, what is this?" She started crying again. Too late, too loud. "I just wanted to protect our finances. She's unstable, Marcus." But she didn't notice that the baby monitor light was on again. Every word she said, every lie, was being recorded in crystal clarity. I didn't need to raise my voice. I just reached over, turned the monitor toward her, and pressed play. Her own voice filled the room. from days before. You need to get her out before she talks. I can't just throw her out, Selena. Then I will. Marcus stepped back, like he'd been struck. Selena's face went white. That was the moment I stopped being invisible. The tears she used as weapons now meant nothing. I'd seen them too many times. Marcus left for work that morning in silence, and Selena didn't say a word for the rest of the day. I went back to the basement, closed the tin box, and whispered to myself, "Now I'm done watching." I didn't need to shout. Revenge doesn't live in noise. It lives in patience. And patience was something I had more of than she could ever fake. By the time she realized I wasn't scared of her anymore, it was already too late. Because I'd found her weakness, not the forged papers, not the lies, but her need to be admired. And I was about to use that against her. After that morning, the house grew strangely polite. Selena spoke to me with forced sweetness, the kind you use when you're scared someone knows too much. She started leaving little peace offerings on the counter. Tea, fruit, a croissant. But I knew guilt sugarcoats itself before it rots. Marcus avoided us both. His footsteps upstairs were slower, heavier, like shame had weight. That silence was my weapon now. I'd learned her rhythm, every habit, every weakness. Selena's world ran on image. Her makeup had to be perfect, her social posts flawless, her home magazine-ready. That's where I would plant the seeds. One afternoon, she came into the kitchen, holding her phone. "Evelyn," she said with fake cheer, "my friend is visiting tomorrow. Can you make yourself scarce? She doesn't need family drama." I smiled gently. "Of course. I wouldn't want to ruin your performance." She blinked. "My what?" "Your performance," I repeated softly, stirring my tea. "You rehearse it every day." Her mouth tightened, but she said nothing. That was fine. Silence had always been my language. That night, I started my plan. First, I cleaned the basement until it gleamed, not for comfort, but for proof. Then I gathered what I'd kept hidden, the forged documents, the appraiser's note, the audio recording from the baby monitor. I slipped them into a folder labeled "For Marcus," when truth hurts enough. And then I waited. The next day, Selena's friend arrived, the one she'd been bragging about for weeks. Tall, elegant, expensive perfume filling the house. I stayed quiet in the kitchen, wiping counters, pretending not to listen. "Oh, this place is stunning," the friend said. "I know, right?" Selena laughed. "Marcus and I are planning to remodel once his mother moves out." Her friend gasped. "She still lives here?" "Barely," Selena said with a smirk. "I told Marcus we can't start our new life until the past is cleared out." The words stabbed, but I didn't flinch. I just walked past them, carrying my tea. "Lovely afternoon, isn't it?" I said. The friend looked embarrassed. "Oh, Mrs. Carter, I didn't see you." "That's all right," I smiled. "People often don't." I went downstairs, leaving the silence to do its work. Nothing rattles a liar like getting caught mid-performance. That night, Selena cornered Marcus. I heard them through the vent again. "She's eavesdropping. She's trying to turn people against me." "Selena," he said weakly, "maybe stop giving her reasons." "Don't you take her side." Her voice cracked, high and shrill. I sat there in the basement, the dog asleep at my feet, and realized she was unraveling. All I had to do was give her one last push. The next morning, I left the folder open on the dining table, deliberately, next to her favorite scented candle. It took less than an hour. She found it. I heard the sharp inhale, the rustle of papers, the hurried footsteps to the phone. "She's crazy, Marcus. She's spying on us." Perfect. Because I knew Marcus would check before judging. He always did. When he opened that folder later, he wouldn't find anger. He'd find truth, dates, evidence. And she would find herself standing in a house built on someone else's patience. That evening, I cooked dinner again. It was the first time in weeks. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, sweet tea, the kind Marcus loved when he was little. When they came home, the smell hit them first. Selena froze. "You cooked!" she said, forcing a laugh. I did, I answered. You two have been busy. Thought I'd remind you what family tastes like. Marcus sat quietly, eating. Selena barely touched her plate. The silence at that table could have shattered glass. After dinner, I stood by the window, looking out at the garden Tom planted years ago. The moonlight fell across the counter where the baby monitor sat, blinking softly. Selena's reflection appeared beside mine. Whatever game you're playing, she said coldly, you'll regret it. I turned, smiling faintly. I'm not playing, dear. I'm just cleaning up what you made dirty. Her jaw tightened, but her hands trembled. That's when I knew. Fear had finally replaced arrogance. And once a liar gets scared, truth doesn't need to chase them. They run right into it. I poured my last cup of tea for the night, calm as ever, because the next day her lies would meet daylight, and when daylight touches rot, there's no hiding the smell. The morning the truth came out, the air itself felt heavier. Marcus had been quieter than usual. Selena hadn't left her room. The tension hummed through the walls, like the house itself was holding its breath. I knew that day would come. Truth is patient. It waits until pride runs out of lies. Marcus came downstairs with the folder in his hands. His eyes were swollen, sleepless. He didn't look angry. He looked broken. Mom, I read everything. I didn't say a word. Did she really forge your signature? I nodded slowly. More than once. He sat down, buried his face in his hands. She told me you were confused, that you made mistakes, forgot things. I might forget faces, Marcus, I said softly, but not my name on a line I never signed. He looked up, and I saw it, that flicker of a child who used to trust his mother. I need to hear it from her. I smiled faintly. Oh, you will. Selena came down soon after, hair undone, voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. Marcus, please, you can't believe everything she says. He cut her off. Enough, Selena, just tell me the truth. Her lips twitched. The truth? You want the truth? Fine. Yes, I had papers drawn up. Because she's losing control of her finances. I stayed calm, leaning against the counter. Losing control? Yes, she snapped. You forget things, Evelyn. You leave stoves on, I interrupted quietly. Funny. You trust me enough to watch your dog and fold your laundry. She blinked, thrown off. I reached for the baby monitor, the same one that had caught her plotting, and pressed play again. Her voice filled the room. You need to get her out before she talks. Then I will. Marcus turned to her, his expression hollow. You plan to throw her out. Selena's breathing quickened. That was a joke. I raised an eyebrow. Then you must be the funniest woman alive. The moment shifted. For weeks she'd held the power, with charm, manipulation, and Marcus's silence. But now she was standing in the middle of her own stage, lines collapsing around her. You twisted everything, she hissed. You've been spying on me. I smiled. No, dear, you've been confessing near microphones. Her face turned red. You think anyone will believe some old woman? I leaned closer. They don't have to believe me. They'll believe the recordings, the bank forms, the appraiser's statement, and your signature on every lie. She stepped back, shaking. You don't know what it's like, always judged compared to you, treated like I'm not enough. There it was, the crack beneath her cruelty. Jealousy, dressed as hate. I spoke quietly. You could have had a mother. I tried to be one, but you wanted a throne. The words landed, hard. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm but heavy. Selena, I trusted you with everything. She turned to him, desperate now. I did it for us, for our future. He shook his head. Our future doesn't start with destroying my past. The silence that followed felt like thunder wrapped in velvet. Selena's eyes darted between us, searching for a door, an excuse, a way to rewrite the scene. I gave her none. You said I eat after the dog. I reminded her softly. Funny thing is, dogs are loyal. Her face twisted. You're enjoying this. No, I said. I'm remembering it. She tried to walk away, but Marcus stopped her. We're done lying, Selena. I called the bank. They confirmed everything. Her mask finally broke. She slammed her hand on the table. You'd believe her over me? Marcus didn't shout. He just looked at her the way people do when they realize the love they gave was wasted. I'd believe whoever didn't steal from my mother. That's when she knew it was over. Selena packed that night, not with dignity, with fury. Drawers slammed, shoes thudded. She threw things, muttered curses, blamed me for every dream that had rotted in her hands. I sat in the living room, folding my tea napkin slowly, watching her storm through the house she'd tried to claim. You think you've won? She spat. No, I said calmly. I just stopped losing. When the door finally closed behind her, the silence was different, lighter, like the air had been scrubbed clean. Marcus stood there, hands in his pockets, staring at the empty space where she'd been. Mom, he whispered. I don't even know who she was anymore. I reached out, touched his arm gently. That's all right, son. Sometimes we have to lose the wrong people to remember ourselves. He nodded, eyes wet. But I wasn't finished, because this story wasn't just about surviving her. It was about reclaiming everything she thought she could erase. Later that night, when Marcus had gone to bed, I took the folder, the recordings, and the burned envelope from the clinic, every piece of proof, and slid them into a drawer labeled Keep for Truth. I didn't plan to use them again, but they were mine, my scars, neatly filed. I sat at the kitchen table, tea steaming in front of me, the dog sleeping at my feet, the same table where she'd once thrown my dinner in the trash. Now, I ate in peace. And I made sure to feed the dog first, not because I had to, but because kindness should never depend on rank. Outside, dawn stretched across the sky, a new day, clean and quiet. I whispered into the stillness, Tom, it's done. She won't touch this home again. And for the first time in months, I felt something simple, rare, and holy. Power, without hate. The final confrontation didn't come with shouting. It came with calm, the kind that feels like a loaded gun sitting on a quiet table. 3 days had passed since Selena moved out. The house was silent except for the echo of what she'd tried to do. Marcus barely spoke. Guilt had made him a shadow. But I wasn't done. Cruelty leaves residue, and I wasn't about to let her walk away polished. On Sunday, she came back. The doorbell rang at noon. I opened it to find her standing there, chin high, lipstick perfect, wearing that same perfume she always used to announce herself. I came for my things, she said flatly. Of course, I said, stepping aside. You always did like taking what wasn't yours. She stiffened but said nothing, brushing past me. The dog growled. He never forgot. She went straight to the living room where her boxes were neatly stacked, labeled, tied, ready. I'd made sure of that. Efficient, she muttered, scanning the room. Did you do this yourself? I did, I said, after disinfecting everything you touched. Her eyes flashed. You think you've won, don't you? He'll come back to me. Men always do. I smiled softly. Maybe, but when he does, he won't bring your name into this house again. She crossed her arms. You're old, Evelyn, alone. One day you'll need help and no one will be there. I poured myself tea. I'd rather be alone with peace than surrounded by poison. Her jaw tightened. You ruined my life. I set the cup down. You ruined your own when you forgot the difference between respect and ownership. She took a step closer, voice trembling with rage. You think you're better than me? No, I said quietly. I just think you forgot who you were pretending to be. The words landed like a slap. She opened her mouth, then closed it, the way people do when the truth takes their breath before they can lie again. I reached for a small brown envelope on the table, the one I'd labeled Final Copy. "Here," I said, sliding it toward her. "It's everything you left behind. The forged documents, the recordings, the receipts. I made copies for the lawyer, of course. But you can keep this for your memory." Her hands shook as she took it. You wouldn't..." "Oh, I would. But I don't have to. The truth already lives with the right people now." Her face drained of color. "You're vindictive." "No," I said softly. "I'm thorough." She tried to speak again, but her voice cracked. For the first time, she looked smaller, not powerful, not cruel, just scared. "Why couldn't you just forgive me?" I met her eyes. "Forgiveness is for those who stop hurting people. You never did." When she finally picked up her last box, she turned toward the door. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I smiled. "No, dear, I'll remember it." She stopped, confused. "Remember what? That the next time someone throws my dinner in the trash..." I leaned close enough for her to see the steel in my smile. "I'll make sure they're the ones who never eat again." She didn't answer. She just walked out, fast, heels clicking on the porch, the sound fading into the quiet of her own downfall. When the door closed, I exhaled slowly. The house felt lighter, like it had finally been exorcised. I poured one more cup of tea, carried it to the window, and whispered to myself, "Peace isn't given, it's reclaimed." And this time, I sipped it hot, the way victory tastes when you've earned it drop by drop. The days after Selena's departure were eerily peaceful. No more slamming doors, no perfume trails marking territory, just the hum of the fridge, the occasional bark from the dog, and the creak of a house finally resting after months of holding its breath. But peace alone isn't justice. Justice needs to be seen, not shouted, just quietly proven. And I had one last lesson to teach. A week later, Marcus asked if he could invite a few friends from work for dinner. I agreed without hesitation. "I'll handle everything," I said. "You just bring an appetite." He smiled faintly, maybe for the first time in months. He didn't know what I was planning, but he trusted me again. That was justice enough to begin with. By Thursday evening, the dining table was set the way it used to be. Heavy dishes, linen napkins, candlelight soft against polished wood. Every detail whispered one message: "This is my home." Guests arrived, laughter, warmth, wine bottles clinking. For the first time in ages, this house sounded alive. Then, halfway through dinner, the front door opened. Selena. She wasn't supposed to be there, but manipulators always return for one last performance. She looked immaculate. Red dress, gold earrings, that same brittle smile. "I came to collect the rest of my things," she said. "Of course," I replied calmly. "But since you're here, stay for dinner. We have plenty." She hesitated. Her pride couldn't refuse an audience. As she sat, every guest greeted her with polite confusion. Marcus stared down at his plate, silent. I filled her glass. "Wine?" She nodded stiffly. I raised mine first. "To family, the ones who stand beside you, not on top of you." A murmur of laughter moved through the table. Selena forced a smile, gripping her glass too tightly. Dinner flowed with small talk, travel, work, harmless gossip. Then one of Marcus's colleagues leaned forward. "Mrs. Carter, Marcus told us you designed this house yourself. It's beautiful." Selena opened her mouth, ready to correct him, but I beat her to it. "Yes," I said. "Tom and I built every piece, even that chandelier. He hung it on our anniversary." The room went quiet for a moment, a kind of respectful silence. Selena's cheeks flushed. She hated being invisible. When dessert came, I stood up. "Before we eat," I said, "I'd like to share a short recording. Something I found meaningful lately." Selena froze. I pressed play on a small speaker sitting on the counter. The familiar voice filled the room. Her voice. "You need to get her out before she talks." "Then I will." Gasps around the table. Selena's fork clattered onto her plate. "Turn that off," she shouted. I looked at her gently. "It's public record now, dear. I filed it when I reported the forged documents. The bank wanted verification." Marcus's friends exchanged uneasy looks. Selena's hands trembled. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." I met her eyes. "No, you did that yourself the first time you threw my dinner in the trash." Marcus stood, his voice steady. "Selena, you need to leave." She stared at him, eyes wide. "You'll regret this, Marcus. You'll regret choosing her over me." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence was its own verdict. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the silverware. When she was gone, the room exhaled as one. One of the guests whispered, "That woman's unhinged." I just smiled softly. "No," I said, "just too used to being believed." The laughter that followed wasn't cruel. It was cleansing. After everyone left, Marcus sat across from me. "Mom," he said, voice low, "I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner." I reached for his hand. "Seeing takes time, son. Listening takes love. You've found both again." He nodded, tears tracing down his face. "You should press charges," he said. "I don't need to," I replied. "The truth already did." A few days later, a letter arrived from the bank. It confirmed her account access was revoked, her credit frozen pending investigation. No more schemes, no more forged signatures. I folded the letter neatly, placed it in the tin box, and smiled. Justice wasn't about destroying her. It was about restoring me. That weekend, I walked through the garden Tom had planted years ago. The air smelled of jasmine and rain. I whispered, "She's gone, love," and I didn't have to become her to beat her. Somewhere above, a bird sang, soft, triumphant. I bent down, patted the dog, and said, "Let's go feed you first, boy. You've earned it." Inside, the kettle whistled. I poured my tea, the same way I always did. 1 spoon of sugar, counterclockwise. Not for comfort this time, but for celebration. Because peace isn't found in revenge. It's built in the quiet moments after it's done. When your house feels like yours again, and your silence finally means freedom. The house feels alive again. Not loud, not busy, just alive. Morning sunlight pours through the kitchen window, warm and steady. The kind of light that doesn't demand attention. It just exists, quietly reclaiming the space where cruelty once lived. For the first time in months, I wake up without flinching at footsteps. No tension in the air, no laughter laced with poison, just the hum of peace. Ordinary, beautiful peace. I make my tea the same way I always have. 1 spoon of sugar, counterclockwise. But it tastes different now. Lighter. Every stir reminds me of the calm I fought for. Not the calm they wanted me to keep, but the one I built myself. The dog sits by my chair, waiting for his treat. "Ladies first," I whisper with a smile, placing his bowl down before I take my first sip. He wags his tail, content, loyal. The kind of loyalty people like Selena will never understand. Marcus joins me a few minutes later. He's quiet, but it's the good kind. The kind filled with understanding, rather than guilt. He places a small envelope on the table. "Mom, I put the house back in your name officially," he says. "No more shared titles, no more confusion." I smile softly. "That's sweet, son, but it was never about the paper. It was about remembering who I am." He nods, eyes wet. "You taught me that." After he leaves for work, I wander through the rooms, each one still carrying traces of the war we lived through. The polished table, the framed photos, even the small dent on the wall where she once slammed the door. I touch it gently, not with anger, but with gratitude, because scars mean something survived. In the living room, I set a single cup of tea on the mantel beside Tom's picture. You'd have loved to see her face. I whisper, half laughing. You always said truth doesn't need volume, just timing. For a long moment, I stand there, listening to the quiet. It's strange how victory doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like rest, like breathing after holding it too long. I walk out to the porch, the air warm against my skin. The neighborhood kids are playing down the street. Laughter, bicycles, sunlight flashing off their handles. For a moment, I think about Selena, where she might be, what she might be telling herself. I don't wish her harm, just understanding. Because someday, she'll meet someone who treats her exactly the way she treated others. And maybe then, she'll learn what she never could hear. I close my eyes, inhale the scent of jasmine from Tom's old garden, and say quietly, "It's done now. The house remembers who it belongs to." Then I step back inside, the door closing softly behind me. The kettle whistles again, as if reminding me, some rituals never change. I pour one last cup, take a sip, and smile. Not at victory, but at peace. Because when they tried to bury me in silence, they forgot. Silence is where women like me grow roots. The house hasn't changed much, just the rhythm inside it. The walls no longer echo with fear or tension. They breathe in laughter now. Marcus visits every Sunday, usually with his daughter. My granddaughter, Ella. She's 5 now, curious and bright-eyed. She calls me Gran Evie. Sometimes she asks about the basement. "Why don't you use that room, Gran?" I smile and say, because it taught me everything I needed to know. The garden Tom planted has grown wild. Vines, lavender, a touch of chaos I've learned to love. Every bloom feels like a victory he planted for me before he left. I've grown older, yes, lines deeper, hair grayer, but I'm lighter too. Because when you've been humiliated and survived with grace, there's nothing left to fear. I sip my tea every morning, counterclockwise, always the same way. Some habits aren't comfort, they're legacy. Sometimes I still think of Selena. Someone told me she moved to another city, started working at a small real estate office. I hope she's learned something, not from me, but from herself. People like her always think control is strength, but real strength is the ability to stay kind when the world tries to turn you cruel. I learned that the hard way, and I'd do it again. I look around my home now, the same table, the same walls, the same peace, and I smile, whispering softly to the air. Sometimes being left behind is the fastest way to get ahead, because it's true. Being discarded only taught me how much I was worth. Being silenced only sharpened my voice, and being humiliated only showed me the value of dignity. If you've ever trusted the wrong people, this story is for you. Tell me in the comments what part hit your heart the most, and where you're listening from. Auntie always loves to know where her stories travel.